We've taken the parsing and put it on the very front lines where it was arguably never designed to see. So there aren't a ton of real-world concrete examples of widespread attacks against XML parsers, but I think that's a fertile ground that we'll see a lot of things coming up in the next couple of years as more systems rely on XML and as more attackers realize what attack surface is there. Insecure direct object reference. Again, this is fairly similar conceptually. So developer exposes a reference to an internal implementation by mistake, allows the attacker basically to bypass the authorization scheme and manipulate it directly. The big problem we have to deal with here in web services, again, comes back to complexity and moving parts. So an example here, let's say I write a SOAP message, a SOAP service to buy some stock. Then I say, okay, I'm not going to have anonymous access because people are buying stock. I'm not just going to let anybody buy stock. So I'm going to actually put a WS security header on this message, ask for a digital signature, so I get integrity, I get authentication, and life is good. So I get a SOAP message into my service provider, it's signed, I can verify the signature, I can verify the message for integrity, life is pretty good. The problem is that a number of IDEs or just poor programming practice will automatically generate not just a SOAP interface, but also a REST interface. And you may leave, and we've seen this in the field a bunch of times, where a REST service gets published alongside the SOAP service, and so that an attacker can execute the HTTP GET call on the bottom with a number and then take the and then make the request to buy the stock directly. So the rule of thumb here would be, if you're publishing a SOAP interface, turn off REST. If you're publishing a REST interface, turn off SOAP, and so on. So number 4, information leakage and handling. Applications can unintentionally leak information. Again, we're back to the sheer moving parts, WSDL, XSD, XML, that we have to deal with in web services. They all have potential to leak information either directly or indirectly about the configuration. So a number of vulnerabilities. In a SOAP-based web service, WSDL is often published on the network and describes the operations of services. And again, we have the automatic generation of WSDL by IDEs. XSD is often available to attackers, and XML to allow the data types and values so the attacker can craft a much more targeted attack with the payload. And then the UDDI, or the registry that you're using, can leak more information about metadata and policy information that actually govern either the structure or the behavior control of the system. Number 5, broken authentication and weak tokens. So we have flaws like failure to protect credentials and tokens, token lifetime, claims and assertions throughout their life cycle. So Microsoft, IBM, the other big players in the web services industry have moved us from our happy little role-based access control world and have set us down, at least from a web services standpoint, in what they call a claims-based access control, or CBAC. And so where a role-based access control world relies on knowing everything about a subject, an object, and a session, mapping that together in some sort of policy, we have no such knowledge across the subjects and objects and sessions. We actually have a set of claims. Those claims or assertions then need to be validated and evaluated. And so they're evaluated based on a lot of factors, but the point is that we don't have a static mapping between subject, objects, sessions, and roles. We actually have a composable set of specifications that we need to evaluate the inbound claim that we receive and make a security decision. Much more analogous to how ATM security would work or credit card security would work. So you could imagine getting a FICO score, just like when you go in to get a loan. The first thing the bank is going to do is run your FICO score. If you have 700, they'll probably give you a loan. If you're below 700, they probably won't give you a loan. Even if you're above 700 as a score from FICO, they may only give you a loan up to a certain type. So it's a very composable way of making security decisions in a quick way, and it relies on a confidence score. So, or you could summarize what I just said for the last 2.5 minutes as Keith Brown said, you can't authenticate the client, so don't even try, which is a more succinct way of saying what I just said. So if we can't authenticate the client, we're actually going to put a token in the message. That's a standard way to do that is a WS security token, which turns out to be a good thing because we can get a WS security token from Active Directory with Kerberos tickets. We can use digital X509 digital signatures. We can use SAML assertions, or we can use username and passwords. So 4 different token types we can use. Unfortunately, we can be WS security compliant, and all of those tokens that I just listed off, Kerberos, X509, SAML, and username and password, have wildly varying security properties, as you might imagine, right? And so we can be WS security compliant. WS security was designed as a checkbox for security, and like all checkboxes, it's useful for some things and not for others. One of the things it's not useful for is it again equates username and password, unsigned token, with other tokens such as SAML, X509, and Kerberos. So I could have a SOAP message. An auditor comes in and says, hey, you can't just send a SOAP message with no security tokens in it. You need to do WS security. Go back to my desk, implement WS security. What's the easiest way to implement WS security? Username and password token. So I've implemented WS security. I've added my password into the SOAP message that goes over the wire, and I've implemented it with password text that's visible. So now I have a web service that's arguably less secure than it was when I had no WS security, because I've actually broadcast my password in clear text on the network and to everyone who receives the message. I can make that stronger in WS security by adding the hash password digest. So my username is in the clear, which is fine, but my password is now hashed. So I've fixed that one weakness around having a clear text password. So the token is definitely stronger than the username, password, and clear text token. But the problem is that the message is not hashed, so I don't have integrity. There's no timestamp, and there's no nonce. So I would want the nonce and the timestamp to help deal with replay attacks, because my service is just sitting there listening passively, and I don't want to buy 100 shares of Amazon stock. I wanted to buy 10, and somebody resubmits it 10 times, and now I own 100 shares of Amazon stock. So this token would then still be vulnerable to replay attack and various other timing attacks, because it lacks a timestamp and it lacks a nonce. So a lot of these decisions around implementing the authentication schemes, the token schemes, and the claims-based access control are left 100% up to you. So you're using WS security, that's great, but really what Microsoft and IBM and the other vendors did is ship you a box of Legos, and you have to figure out how the Legos are going to all fit together. Another variation of this that I've seen quite a bit of is that people then really drill down on WS security, apply WS security, and they apply it on one side of the equation. They apply it maybe on the request side and forget about security on the response side. So the service requester sends in their WS security message to the service provider. Service provider authenticates that request, sends back the response,